Still might. We'll see. It's time. The song's not over.
Yep. So. Sure. It might. Yeah. So from my perspective, understanding trading and price stuff and what, it seemed to me like people would be better served. And I was right. I mean, I wrote a guide. I have been very right about things. So I wrote a guide on how to sell Bitcoin Cash at 0.19 when it was worth 19% of a Bitcoin. And I believe it's worth 3.5% of a Bitcoin now. So if people had taken my advice and sold when I wrote the guide that used a virtual machine to protect your private keys, so if that EXE that you got was, funky, it couldn't then, steal all your money. People would have 4 or 5 times the Bitcoin Cash now that they had because they took my advice. I was right about the price. Yep. And I was right about Craig Wright. I warned you about that guy in our first meeting, and you said, he sounds good to me. He says he sounds like he knows what he's doing. So I was right about Craig. I was right about the BCH price. I wasn't right about Bitcoin making technical progress because it just totally stagnated and nothing good happened. There's not a single good feature that's been added since SegWit that I'm aware of. I'm, pretty smart dude. I mean, am I missing anything? Did some good feature happen after SegWit? I don't think any did.
So if anything, I would say SegWit was a disaster, not necessarily from a technical standpoint, but from a social standpoint, because the entire goal of SegWit was to fix the transaction malleability there and have it be a soft fork so that it wouldn't split the chain. But in reality, it wound up splitting the chain and fracturing the community and doing all the exact things that they were claiming SegWit was designed to prevent. And so it had the exact opposite effect of what they were claiming the reason they needed SegWit for was. So from that perspective, I think it was an absolute...
It does make you wonder. I mean, in an alternate reality, what would the Bitcoin price be? I think the world became better when the fork happened, because I think the things that you want are not compatible with the things that they want. They want digital gold. They don't want high throughput, or we would have already had a block size increase because the shit was on the roadmap, but now it's just not. And I don't know that we will get any type of interesting improvement in Bitcoin ever again. We had to really, really, really work to get SegWit, which I believe was non-controversial, was just a 25% throughput increase and a malleability fix, is all that was. And look,
that resulted in a shattering of the community, though. That's the problem.
But you guys opted for that, right? Like, if someone wants to be divorced, they can get divorced, right? Like, even if they had, I don't think it's fair to say that they shattered the network when you were just as responsible as they were for that, right?
I don't know
if they would have switched to your side, then you wouldn't have forked.
We talked about the other side. Like from a technical standpoint, I'm totally agnostic on SegWit. I don't have.
You want to try turning your video camera on? Like, your audio is pretty good. We might be able to survive the video.
Sure, let's give it a try there.
Yeah.
Hey, so on SegWit itself, and let me know if it's bad again. I'll turn it back off. It looks good. Yeah. Okay. I'm agnostic on SegWit itself, but what the end result was that it shattered the whole community, and I think
I think it made the community better. I really do think it made the community better. Let me give you an example. You've got developers.
The splitting, or what aspect made the community better?
It removed a lot of. So, if you want to develop code, I've had this in my own project. I've had a lot of volunteers that have done a lot of good work to try and make Hex amazing. And their work only matters to the world if it gets merged into the code. So people can write good code and do pull requests, and then those pull requests can just be ignored and die. And I believe that if you had stayed in the Bitcoin ecosystem with Blockstream in charge of the keys, that all of the technical innovations that you've built into BCH now, you sure as fuck would not have. You wouldn't have them. The only world in which you would be able to have the things that you built is one in which a fork occurred and 2 different parties worked on 2 different code bases, period. So I think it is actually net better for the world that the fork happened. Sociologically, the 2 ecosystems just kind of diverged, and that's fine. Like, you don't want to watch the same movies as everyone else. You
be married to somebody you hate.
Yeah, you want to see an action movie, somebody wants to see a romance, Neither of you guys is bad. You just want to do things different. You want more security, less throughput, less security, more throughput. Like, those are all fair and fine trade-offs. And I think the fork made the world better from that perspective. I guess
I wish the fork had happened sooner in that sense.
Yeah, well, you tried to make things better from the inside. You want more throughput, and you shouldn't feel bad for wanting more throughput. It's an honest intention. And our first talk was me trying to explain that it is a security trade-off. And in reality, right now, we don't really need the throughput, but at some point we will, right? So
we definitely needed the throughput.
Then, in 2017, we did. But the only reason we needed it then was because ICOs, truthfully. If it wasn't for the ICOs, we wouldn't have had that 2017 bubble. That brought all the new money and the new energy, which gets me back to the marketing question, right? So there's this weird thing that crypto people have where they think that whatever they bought is world-changing and amazing, and that whatever they didn't buy is a scam. And the ICOs helped that usually be true. And the shitty crypto projects in the past made that usually be true. Now the problem is that people are used to it usually being true. And now that those things are dying off and more kind of honest things are what is remaining, now people have got their head stuck in the sand and they're unwilling to remeasure the reality and see that the landscape has changed and see that things are different now than they were 2 years ago. They're not different in Bitcoin land. That shit's all the same. Nothing changed there. But everywhere else, it's fucking different and better. Like, things everywhere else got better. So you've got to take your head out in the sand and look. So when we talk about what makes a cryptocurrency valuable, you need more users. Cryptocurrencies are only efficient when you have circular economic movement. Every time you have to jump off the chain to a counterparty, you get wrecked. Your efficiency is totally fucked. If you have to go pay 10% to an ATM to get in and out, 20% round trip, forget about it. That doesn't make the world a better place. It makes it a worse place. When you have more AML KYC for crypto than not, that makes the world a worse place, not better. It's also security theater. So how do you get all those millions of users? Well, there are millions of users being gotten and totally destroyed and ripped off with the same sales pitches that we have. They just have better marketing. Plus Token had better marketing than BCH and Bitcoin and every other cryptocurrency. Cloud Token, which exists now, is another Ponzi, has better marketing. BitConnect had better marketing. All of these fucking scams have better marketing than honest crypto projects, and what happens? They just steal everyone's money and make crypto look bad. It's worse for everybody. There's only one way to stop that shit, and it's to use the same tactics that they're using successfully to onboard users, which, as an expert, limited time offer, referral program, FOMO, right?
But you have to have some underlying usefulness. Like the usefulness isn't that the price goes up and that's
the underlying
it.
usefulness, it's lower fees than Bitcoin. It's more secure than Bitcoin. It's been audited 3 times. It's got the world's first monetization of time. Bitcoin pays and rewards people only for hashing things. Hex does not inflate the currency to pollute the environment. Hex inflates the currency only to reward stakers. So if you're a staker, you don't have inflation. It's a 0% inflation system for you with no externalities of the miners selling down the price. So it's better for the environment. It's better for the price performance. And we're the first cryptocurrency in the world with a chart of future market supply. So if you've got a Masternode coin, you can dump whenever you want. If you've got a staking coin, you can dump whenever you want. Well, dump whenever you want is bad for the price, and it gives people less certainty, and it gives you more volatility, and it's worse. So because we know where everyone's stakes are ending in the future, you can choose to have your stake end on a day where someone else's isn't, which reduces the volatility, which gives you a better Sharpe ratio, which is better for everyone. So there's less pollution, better marketing.
Everyone except the person staking, because they have less chance, or they have less options as to when they want to in their staking. So because nobody knows the future. The future is uncertain. Maybe today it seems like, staking for the next 5 years is a good idea, but then tomorrow I get diagnosed with cancer and I need the money for medical treatment.
There is an emergency end stake feature, and in the future it's likely you'll be able to trade the stake things by wrapping them with another contract or an open dime. And so your theory sounds right. However, your theory doesn't match the real world. In the real world, I know this business works because it's more than there is printed currency. In the United States and China, there's $7.2 trillion in time-locked CDs. Fact. I can send
people
you the
can trade those.
No, you can't.
You're right.
You can't trade those. They're CDs. They're not tradable.
Yeah, but no, people can trade CDs, of course.
No, when you go to your bank and you buy a CD, you ain't trading it. Ain't nowhere. It's not tradable. Bonds, treasuries, maybe. Bank CDs, not. If you go to SunTrust Bank, if that even still exists, and you say, hey, give me a savings account, they'll go, all right, we'll give you like 0.02%. All right, I want more percent. What can I do? Oh, we lock your money up. Okay, well, how much extra do I get if I lock it a year? I think if you lock 5 years, you get 2.49% or 2.25. I think like 2 years is 2.25, and then every extra year you add, they give you 20% more interest. And it starts to trail off towards the end, like they give you less interest. So in the real world, we already know that there's a time value of money, and we already know there's 7.2 trillion in time deposits, and we already know the only thing that makes a time deposit unique is that it pays you more if you lock longer. We just copied all that shit and put it on the blockchain, and no one else did it. It's the second most popular product at the bank. If you want to replace banks, you've got to replace all their products. Bitcoin tried to do currency and failed.
So
I'm not sure.
I guess one additional difference here, though, with the CD at the bank, they're not just holding the money, they're then lending it out at a higher interest rate and earning money on it.
It's a very common misconception. It's not actually what happens. Everyone thinks that's what happens. What really happens is when you deposit your money at a bank, they put it on the liability side of their balance sheet. It's not an asset, it's a liability. And then they use that as an excuse, as a reserve, to get the actual money that they lend out, that they get super cheap from the Fed. So when you give your money to a bank, it doesn't actually get lent out. The money that gets lent out is the Fed's money that they give them because they had your money. Now in Hex,
that's true.
Yep. In Hex, we have.
But it's your deposit that helps them enable to borrow more money from the Fed at the super low interest rate.
Yeah, so. And the Fed could just decide that they need less reserve or more reserve. It's really up to the Fed. It doesn't have anything to do with your balance. Your coins aren't actually. Your coins are as useful as it makes the Fed.
To some extent, it does, because the more deposits they have, the more they can borrow from the Fed.
So. Yeah, in effect. But the Fed can change that whenever they want. They can make it more, they make it less, and they do. So, and that's why they have stress tests. They have stress tests because sometimes the reserves aren't high enough, and then they have to eat into people's actual savings. And when they do that, you max out your FDIC insurance, which I think maxes out at $300K, and then you're just fucked. You lose your money. So people don't realize that, yes, banks do fail. And you can look up how many banks fail a year.